key issue in the design of a social survey, whether it's used in a school setting or in a general population sample, is the measurement of socio-demographic variables. And here we'll talk about why these variables are important and how they're measured. A good indication of why they're important is to look at age. And this graph shows the distribution of the prevalence of past month illicit drug use by different age cohorts. So drug use begins in the early teens. It increases up until about the age of 20, and then it begins to decline over the life course. And if you just wanted to get an average prevalence rate for the population, that would not tell you as much as you needed to know about which parts of the population are actually using those substances. And you would often want to do these kinds of surveys in over a period of time, perhaps once a year in a school or in a community, to see if prevention programs are working. And the distribution according to age would be an important part of the analyses that you would want to conduct, and therefore, obviously, you would need to measure the age of the respondents. Another thing you would want to measure is the extent of binge drinking in your sample. And here we have males and females, which show how prevalence rates for binge drinking differ tremendously by a person's sex, where males over the course of time have shown dramatically greater prevalence rates than females. But in the case of alcohol, binge drinking, as well as drug use, females are becoming more and more like males. This could be because gender roles are changing. Regardless, we would want to measure not only age, but also sex and gender orientation as part of our socio-demographic variables. Here's another indication of how sex and gender need to be monitored, how they can be monitored over time, and you would want to disaggregate according to gender in order to study trends in this particular case of cigarette smoking during the past month. So here we have a trend declining over a 12-year period in cigarette smoking for both males and females, and by 2013 you have this congruence between males and females, where when they started doing this survey in 2002, there were 2 percentage point differences. We also would like to measure gender orientation, and here questions can be used or incorporated that ask if people are gay, bisexual, lesbian, and other gender categories. The importance of measuring sexual orientation comes from the fact that alcohol and sometimes drugs are often a socializing factor, with people hanging out in bars and dealing with their gender issues in social context. So it's important to measure sexual orientation, not just sex. We also would want to measure socioeconomic status, whether it's income, occupational status, or the amount of education a person has. Income, occupation, and education are 3 basic ingredients in the measurement of socioeconomic status, which is an important variable in the type and amount of substance use. And if we want to have accurate estimates within a population, we would need to disaggregate according to socioeconomic status. And scales have been developed to allow us to measure these variables: occupational prestige and income and educational achievement. We'd also want to measure whether a person is employed full-time or part-time or unemployed, because that could have an important effect on their substance use. And we want to measure the number of years of education and the types of education that they've had. So at the very least, we want to measure socioeconomic status, education, age, gender, and put these together in a way that we can conduct analyses of prevalence rates that either control for these variables or take them into account. And that's the first step in designing a good survey.